Anomander Rake versus Geralt of Rivia. These two are both extreme heavyweights within the matchup. I've only recently come to learn about both, so there may be a few mistakes in this matchup factually. I'm very willing to admit that. That being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. Nothing should really be a big enough error to influence the fight, but let's go ahead and jump on into it. We have these 7 categories, starting with origin, development, role, interest for the reader, relationships, who would win in a fight, and last and least, only if it's a tiebreaker, who would do better in the other's world. Now, when it comes to origin, this is where one character stands strong and the other weak, and that is Anomander Rake standing strong. He has a long history that feels impactful for who he is as a character. It really helps develop his presence in the series and lends to how others treat him as well. Geralt, on the other hand, not so much. We just kind of get, he's a Witcher, he went through Witcher training, but we more or less just pick up with his character and well after his origin, and nothing much more to his origin is given beyond a couple side stories here and there. It's never fleshed out or fully developed, and I think this is an intentional choice by the author to just kind of have him be who he is in the moment and develop from there. The more you gave him more of an innocent past, the more it would harm the character that's first given to us, this supposedly emotionless man. Someone who we as a reader are supposed to accept is more of a machine than man when it comes to emotions. I think it does help his character quite a bit, but it does hurt for the origin point. Not really having a developed one almost disqualifies you. And Anomander Rake is something really great. While we don't ever really experience it with him, it is there and it is more flushed out in terms of what he's been through and how it lends to who he is now. We hear of how he's maintained his power and why he's so respected throughout the kingdom, and therefore his origin has certainly more presence than Geralt's does, due to Geralt being absent kind of being the point. So for this first point, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Anomander. Now we have development, my personal favorite category, and for me, it's almost a flip scenario. Anomander Rake, well, he develops in the eyes of the reader, and the actual character unfolds a little here. Geralt's development is really next level. I enjoy how much time and effort are put into really having Geralt be unveiled to the reader, but also actually changing when it comes to who he is as a person as well. There's a lot more of a back and forth and a depth to the development of Geralt. It's done through multiple aspects of his character, his personality and snarkiness coming out a little more, his relationships helping develop him, and the world around him and how he interacts with those who are supposed to be good versus those who are supposed to be bad also really helps develop Geralt. It works really well, and for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and give Geralt the point. It's not that Anomander's is bad or poorly executed. I just think that Geralt's, it's one of the best aspects of his character, and Anomander's is worth talking about as well. He develops through kind of better relationships with those around him a little bit, but the point of his character has never been development. He arrives more developed, and this is due to his origin being such a long, extensive thing. If we met this ancient character who suddenly does a turnaround, it would almost defeat the purpose of that ancient character. So his is more of an origin-based character, while Geralt's is more of a development-based character. Now we have role they play in the world they are in. This one really depends on your perspective. Geralt's role in the actual world, in terms of how much he can actually lend to saving the world, is not on the same level as Anomander's. Anomander has a more impactful weight on the world he's in, period. It comes from his power level, his place in the sky, and all these things really do have a larger impact on the world. On a more interpersonal level though, in Geralt's story, Geralt is the lead. He is the main character. His role for the reader is absolutely 100%. And that's more personally my taste when it comes to role. I like to follow someone who's more at the center of things while not having the universe kind of revolve around them. And it's interesting how Anomander is not in the most center role for a large portion of his series, yet he does kind of have this things revolving around him aspect to him as well. A lot of the world kind of shifts on his choices. I personally can't really make a choice between the two. It is a more personal preference idea. Do you want someone whose inherent role is more important to the world, or do you want a role that's more important for the reader? That is something I'll have to leave up to the individual, and I will call this point a wash because their executions, in my opinion, are equally wonderful. Now we have interest for the reader, and I may make a few people angry here. Anomander Rake is interesting, but his interest is largely based off his reputation, his abilities, and his kind of other cool aspects to his character that are more or less just shallow things. Don't get me wrong, they're very cool. Having a castle in the sky, turning into a dragon, being this ancient being who is so different is very interesting. But when it comes to execution of his personality, his relationships with others, they're good. But Geralt's are great. And when it comes to technically writing interest, that's the more difficult feat here. And Geralt's no lightweight when it comes to a more shallow kind of interest as well. Being a Witcher is awesome, and his interactions with the world around him really help recontextualize what a traditional monster setting really would be. I just believe the actual writing of Geralt was done so well when it comes to interest. He is fascinating, and it really comes largely from his relationships. The whole series really revolves around the evolution of his relationships so well. I'm going to go ahead and give Geralt the point here. And if you're paying attention to the last point, you probably know who's going to get the next one. Relationships. Yes, Anomanders are fine. They actually have a few really good moments, especially involving a leg, that help develop him, the world, and all kinds of other things. And against a standard average fantasy character, it might be enough to give him the point. But when it comes to Geralt and relationships, every scene is crucial. Every scene is on that leg level of Anomanders. He is constantly building, maintaining, and evolving these relationships on a level that feels just unreal for fantasy. It's on just another level that we typically get for fantasy. The author here really decided to have his series pull its stakes and so much of its interest from the relationships between this one man and the world around him. And when the first few books are entirely from Geralt's perspective, you can't help but become really invested in these relationships. And when you eventually pull away and are actually in other people's perspectives who are involved with Geralt, it only helps to build them as characters as well. So everyone kind of benefits in this series because of how well relationships are executed. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the point. Now we have who would win in a fight. This one's kind of difficult because they have very similar skill sets and weight to them. I can't really make a choice here because Geralt has killed people on power levels that really don't make sense for someone with his power set. He's just that good. Meanwhile, Anomander is just on that next level power set. Someone who it maybe doesn't really make sense for Geralt to be able to defeat, but he has defeated people that skilled before, so I can't really say he wouldn't. And I'm going to go ahead and call this point a wash. I can't make a good judgment call here because we as the reader do not have these two powers and skill sets on just a way that we can really compare them well enough. I'd love for you guys to sound off in the comments who you think would win in a fight. It's just kind of, I mean, you take away plot armor from Geralt completely, which is something he relies on a lot. I think it would pretty much clearly go to Anomander, but he has such definitive plot armor, he's almost Talviren. But yeah, I will definitely let you guys go ahead and decide this one, but I'm going to call this point officially a wash. Now we have who would do better in the other's world. Geralt's already at a place of discrimination and disadvantage in his own world. People do not really treat Witchers well, and Anomander is just at a high level, high status position in his world. He doesn't really get discriminated against, but he's also kind of just a presence that people don't know how to handle. If they switched worlds, I think Geralt may stick out a little. He might not be the most welcome person in Malazan due to this, though this world is kind of very open and adaptive to more non-traditional things. He could thrive and certainly make a living doing what he does in the Malazan world. And Anomander, on the other hand, going into Geralt's world, sticks out a lot more, and I don't believe fits the exact description of many creatures. That being said, people are incredibly open in Geralt's world to seeing a lot of different creatures, and as long as they don't fall into the more demonic, evil-looking kind, which arguably Anomander does, I don't think he would face horrific discrimination or anything like that. It really just comes down to who is more powerful and could actually kind of rise to a higher level status. Geralt is powerful by Malazan standards, though not extraordinarily so, and Anomander kind of repeats the same thing in the Witcher world. Really, they're similar enough in power set and mentality going into these different worlds. Once again, it's going to be really hard to decide. I want to lean Anomander a little bit, just because in my impression of his power set, he is a little bit higher than Geralt, and I think overall the world of the Witcher would just not really know what to do with him to the point where he might just get left alone, which seems to be his preference. And Geralt definitely has the mentality of wanting to be left alone, but we've seen throughout his series he does thrive on relationships. So I'm going to say he would have trouble with that, especially going in fresh to this world with so many political conflicts and things he does not understand. I think I'm going to go ahead and give the tiebreaker point to Anomander. This one, again, I don't know either of these characters as deeply, especially Anomander, as many other people in the bracket, but with Geralt's execution, just in my opinion, immediately bringing him to classic level status, I just think it would be silly for Anomander to win this fight. Yes, I enjoy him a lot, but I don't think anything I've read from him, and I've done some spoiler stuff for me for the series and read pretty much every bit that's involved Anomander throughout the series. I just don't see how he could have possibly beaten out Geralt here. So yes, Geralt does take the win. Thank you especially to Kyle O'Flaherty. I hope I'm saying your name right. I am dyslexic, and that is a pronunciation that I am not exactly sure of. Assuming Irish, which actually, fun fact, I lived in Ireland for about 9 months, which was great. Probably my favorite place I've ever been and spent any real time. So that was wonderful. But I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon like Kyle did if you want to support the channel and what I do here. Everyone on Patreon has allowed me to continue doing this with so much higher quality stuff. Clearly, lights and things like that. I'll get another light over there, and that'll make everything look a little better. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.